今日2本目の動画はソト選手にかなりフォーカスした内容になっています。ここ数日ファンソト選手に関しての動画を多く上げていましたが、じゃあ実際のとこどうなんと考えるにはどの番組も根拠というかデータをベースにした議論が足りてないなと思っていました。そこでさすがは MLB 公式のご意見番のデータ重視なブライアン・ケニー氏、私が欲しい情報満載でソト氏について話していました。今日2本目の動画はデータで分析するソト選手の契約の妥当性について議論する番組を翻訳してお届けいたします。このチャンネルでは日本人メジャーリーガーの話題を中心にメジャーリーグの気になるニュースを翻訳してお届けいたします。お見逃しのないよう今のうちにチャンネル登録をお願いいたします。
We are just getting into free agent season, and it is an interesting talent pool. Not especially deep, though, and not very deep in pitching. The free agents at the very top will command attention and money. Let's do a little digging in. There is a top tier of free agent starting pitcher. Guys like Yusei Kikuchi, Jack Flaherty, Walker Buehler have all had success in different ways, but their track records are all a bit more erratic. Same thing for Sean Manaea and Luis Severino. So the top tier is Corbin Burns, Blake Snell, and Max Fried. The most durable of the three is Corbin Burns. Over the last 3 years, he's averaged 197 innings a season with a 1.31 ERA+. This is a pitcher who is the number 1 starting pitcher in our ranking series top 10 right now 2 years ago. Number 1. This past season for the Orioles, he had a rough spell down the stretch, but finished with 194 innings and a 2.92 ERA. 4th in the American League. But here's something that's concerning. Burns is entering his age 30 season. His fastball velocity is holding steady. This year, it was sitting 95.5 miles per hour. That's the same it was in his best years, and these were his best years, 2021 mainly. But look at the strikeout percentage, K percentage, from 35%, nearly 36, 30, 25 to 23. Every single year. His whiff rate, that's within the strikeouts, just swing and miss. And his ex-WOBA. You go back 4 years ago, he was 97th and 99th percentile, tops in the league. Look at this ex-WOBA, 219. That's your opponent's quality of contact mixed in with everything else. 219 up to 273, 285, 284. It's up drastically. He's throwing hard. He's having success overall. But, I mean, you look right here, the whiff rate, the K rate, he's not missing bats at the same rate. A guy who is missing bats is Blake Snell. He'll be entering his age 32 season, and this past year, he was 2nd in baseball in strikeout percentage, behind only Garrett Crochet, and just ahead of phenom Paul Skeens. That's super elite territory. Now, Snell is not very durable. He got a late start this year with the Giants because of his prolonged free agency, ended up with just over 100 innings pitched. But over his last 14 starts, when he was fully healthy, he threw 80 innings to a tune of a staggering 1.23 ERA. That's not a misprint. 1.23, reminiscent of his stretch run in 2023 when he won the National League Cy Young Award. Here's something that might surprise you. Snell this year never qualified for the ERA title, so he didn't get that much attention. But over the last 2 seasons, for those with at least 250 innings, Blake Snell's park-adjusted ERA is behind only Tarek Skubal of the Tigers. He's been mercurial in years past, but Snell, the last 2 years, he's an elite pitcher. Corbin Burns, by the way, is 16th, and we put up a top 6 there, so we can get to that guy at the very end on the far right. That's Max Fried. Let's talk Max Fried. He's going into his age 31 season, came off multiple injuries in 2023, was under 75 innings, but he threw 174 innings this year with a decent 3.25 ERA. He's not a big swing and miss guy. He sits only 94, but this year he was 96th percentile in ground ball rate, 95th percentile in average exit velocity, the only pitcher in baseball to be 95th percentile or better in those 2 metrics. So what does he do? He keeps the ball on the ground and he gets weak contact. Now, Fried has also not been durable, but 3 of the last 4 years, he's thrown over 160 innings. That's the norm these days. And in terms of basic run prevention, here are the last 4 years. Among those with at least 400 innings, only Shohei Ohtani has a better park-adjusted ERA. Fried, over a large sample in this new generation, as Verlander, Scherzer, Kershaw step aside, is one of the best pitchers in the game. A defensive position change. Brandon Gomes is from our good friend Joel Sherman, our colleague. Brandon Gomes, general manager of the Dodgers, of course, said the assumption right now is that Mookie Betts will move back to the infield. He was asked about this at the GM meetings, and Gomes had said it could be second, it could be short. We really don't know just yet. I'm surprised here. Now, again, here are the splits of position, the defensive run save. I wouldn't go crazy on this because there's conflicting metrics. look, he got moved off shortstop. He could handle it. And very few guys, actually nobody in the history of the game has ever gone in his 30s to play shortstop and just did it.
From right field.
Kudos to him, right. But you know what? At second base, he can clearly field that position. But I don't know, watching him in the playoffs, Jake, he's a magnificent right fielder. Yeah. Kind of the difference between the Dodgers and the Yankees where, again, the extra bases that we're talking about that the Dodgers did not allow that the Yankees did, a lot of them came from Mookie Betts, who's just making plays like simple plays that don't make highlights, but like that. You know what I mean? His range is fantastic. They say like the wear and tear is a little less at second base. I didn't know that. You played more baseball than I did. I thought it was much more in the infield than the outfield. You tell me.
Completely agree with this. I don't necessarily agree with this, but I think it's geared at Brandon Gomes and Friedman and staff really understanding how valuable their flexibility within their roster just proved to be in this run of being able to get Tommy Edman and Rojas in there when it was matchup related. You see roster flexibility is huge. The Padres have a lot of that same kind of thing of moving guys around and trying to figure it out. I think Mookie just creates a big issue that he can go anywhere. I don't like him at shortstop, though. I think it was a lot to ask. I think you hit it on the head. He can do it, but he's not above average. You want to be as strong as you could ever be at the shortstop position. I hope it's second base, but I think he's better suited.
I'm surprised
he's as good as right fielder, if not the best we have in the game.
I'm using a lot of eye tests here. There's defensive metrics, look, that conflict. Some you believe, some you don't. And with Betts, you know he's not staying at shortstop. I'd be stunned if that happens, but he can go where he wants. He's Mookie Betts. Mark, that's Alex Bregman, and this was put out to the media. Bob Nightingale, I believe, had it first. Scott Boras says Alex Bregman is willing to move to second base. Now, Bregman had a .315 on base this year. It's very low for him. Slugged .453, but he was still a 4-win player. Here, the career starts by position. He doesn't play second base, basically. The last time he played second base was 2018, and he played 11 innings. What's surprising to me, Jake, I guess this is just for the marketplace, and again, Scott Boras' agent throwing this out there. But in fielding run value at third base this year, he was +5. Defensive run saved, that's the other major defensive metric, he was +6. So they align, and they say the same thing. This guy can really field his position at third base. I wouldn't want him at second base. Why would that be a marketable thing?
No, I don't know if it is, just to maybe some more fits for teams. And just we see what the Dodgers did with roster flexibility. The Padres have a little bit of this with shortstops all over and moving guys. Alex Bregman was a shortstop early on, and I guess they don't think he moves or has the range enough to play second base. But look, I came up from an era when I watched Jeff Kent, and I'm not comparing the two, but they're very offensive-minded guys and been thought of that way. I think if you can play anywhere on the major league field, second base is the easiest position on the field, and I think anybody could transition to that. What I'll say about Alex is I'm not sure what the market will determine, but when you talk about Houston wanting to retain him and calling that their top priority, when you've spent 6 years somewhere, BK, and that company, organization wants to retain you, you're doing things the right way. He's a baseball rat. I believe he makes any place he goes, he's going to make all the others around him accountable and better because of his work ethic.
Now, his offensive numbers have come down. Again, 2018 and 2019. He's a superstar. I mean, he's a top 5 player in the game. That's come down, but there is value there. Matt Chapman, who recently signed an extension, signed his deal with the San Francisco Giants. He got 6 years, $151 million. Look at the comparison between the two. Chapman's 1 year older. He's obviously much more glove first. He's a fantastic fielder, not as much of a hitter. But you see the overall numbers. Bregman has a 122 OPS plus. That's, again, based on 100 being league average. So that's quite good. Chapman only 112, still 12% better than league average. The WAR is 18.7 to 15.7 in favor of Chapman because he fields better, but the ceiling seems to be higher on Bregman offensively. Are these comps or are these not comps, Jim?
To me, they're not comps because Bregman has been an offensive juggernaut in a powerhouse. Chapman, right? I know, but I think he still has it in him. I think he's playing hurt a little bit. I think I expect Alex Bregman to have a nice next contract. I don't think that he'll ever get back to that 18, 19 crazy numbers. But look, Chapman, on the other side, I can speak to this. They see him as a championship-type player, defensive-minded first. They think he's got upside with the bat and that he can
the ball
learn.
Hard.
That's right. They think the ballpark certainly hurt him at times this past year being in San Francisco, but he's going to learn how to hit. And Buster is hell-bent on trying to put another championship club together, and a lot of what he saw in the Brandon Belts, Brandon Crawfords, he sees in Matt Chapman, and that's why that deal got done for him to stay there. I think the upside's with Bregman. Bregman is a championship-proven player. He does it in the postseason. He is a winner, and I believe
Good contact hitter.
I think that Alex Bregman is going to impact wherever he ends up, if it's not Houston, in a huge way.
Juan Soto, the courting season has begun. This is according to the New York Post and Mike Puma. Juan Soto, again, is out there, and according to Puma, Mets owner Steve Cohen plans to travel next week to meet with Soto and his agent, Scott Boras. Again, Cohen plans to travel to Southern California next week, according to industry sources. Of course, now this will, happen with many different teams, but how about this, Jake? Because I looked at Fangraphs crowdsourcing just to see, hey, what will he get paid instead of making a number up? What do the people, the informed readers of Fangraphs think? 13 years, $585 million. So that's $45 million per for 13 years. That's the type of player we're looking at. Here are the season splits. He had a magnificent regular season, 419 on base, 569 slugging. The weighted runs created plus is 180, which was second only to his teammate Aaron Judge. But the postseason, it correlated. His game correlates to the postseason, especially at the plate.
It does, and this is why he's going to command such a presence. We saw the at-bat that he had late in the postseason in that Cleveland series. This guy's on a different level, and he's ready for the moment. The length of this contract scares me because of what we've just seen in long-term commitments and the way we know the back end's going to work out. This is what I'll say. He's 26 years old. We love that number, but he's got 6 full seasons at the major league level of wear and tear on that body. By the time you're talking about a decade plus, what are you getting on the defensive side of the ball? Many would argue right now he's a better suited DH. So it scares me, but he's as good of a hitter as we've probably seen in the last decade or so.
Here's outs above average, and that's a StatCast defensive metric. And I didn't even tell you the whole story, but in 2022, negative 16. First percentile, that's bad. You want to be 99 and 100. Negative 9. He was negative 5 this year. Look, he worked hard this year. And yet, I would say this, Jake. We saw the good, the bad, and the ugly of Juan Soto in the playoffs. His at-bats are the very best in the game. His plate discipline, he'll take pitches, he'll grind out at-bats, he will walk, he will not get out of his strike zone, but he'll not strike out. He'll walk, he'll hit a single, and if you leave it up, he'll hit a bomb. However, defensively, same story. We saw balls going out into right field, especially in Dodger Stadium, that he just did not play well, which would just lead to one little measly base, but would lead to a run and lead to a Dodger victory. So all of this, and age 25 season, I wonder what the effect on the market will be, given that, okay, he hits better than Mookie Betts, but he's not Mookie Betts out there.
We're talking about an injury or so away in a couple years. And this guy's not able to be on the field. If he sustains any kind of leg injury or something we've seen what happened to Stanton, and I'm not wishing or saying that's going to happen, but injuries do happen, especially when you're talking about a decade on him. In 4 years into a 13-year deal, we're talking him a decade in, he's not going to be the same guy moving around. And so that scares me long term if we've got a DH for 8+ or so years on our roster, if not making a decision like we need to do and moving him on. The one thing I'll say, too, about is I wish that he would have more at-bats in the regular season, not geared towards the numbers, and like that Cleveland at-bat that we're referencing. Sometimes I think he's the best player and the best hitter on the Yankees team. We saw that in the postseason. Sometimes, as a starting pitcher, I think he's too passive. I think he's looking to walk. In that at-bat, he was not looking to walk. He swung at balls in that at-bat. Not when he is up there and dangerous and looking to do damage 4-5 times a game.
But he did do damage this year.
No, he did. Yeah. But there's plenty of times where he's up there working in at-bat. And I think that, to me, as a starting pitcher against him, you're doing me a favor if you're taking as dangerous of a hitter and putting him in a defensive mode, trying to work his own base percentage in certain certs in the game.
His at-bats are so good, though, right?
As good as anybody in baseball.
So that base running runs, he was almost -4. So, again, he's not running, he's not fielding, but, boy, he can hit, and he can hit in the playoffs. Here's what's happening with the Mets. If you're looking at Steve Cohen and how much money can you pay one player? Again, he's coming into his age 26 season, just as Bryce Harper and Manny Machado were. They got $300 million deals. The Mets payroll is going to go from about $332 million. This is all dead Mets money at the top. Verlander and Scherzer, but now Pete Alonso. By the way, those last 3 guys, you're going to have to replace those innings. They know that. You know, David Stearns, Steve Cohen, the owner, will have to get after that. But they, to their spending capital, Their payroll projected right now, Jake, 177 million. They clearly will get up to 300 million. So if they want to have a high AAV, average annual value for Soto, they can absolutely do it.
And you put Soto and Lindor in a lineup with Lindor doing what he did. We watch what Soto just did. They're going to be formidable when you talk about the other pieces, Vientos and some of their young players. And I think they'll find pitching. David Stearns is brilliant.
Did a great job last year.
When you talk about what he did with an unsuspecting Mets team, the signs that he made were outstanding. They were analytically driven. I believe that they were some feel parts of that with J.D. Martinez and some of the Iglesias certainly wasn't those type of moves. So David Stearns to me is as good as anybody in the game, and that's scary. When he's got this kind of flexibility with payroll, it's scary for the NL East.
This is no question the top player on the free agent market.
やはり長期契約がネックですよね。例えば大谷翔平選手を例に挙げてみれば、二刀流、唯一無二、日本人ブランド、日本企業のスポンサーなど、仮に40歳までの長期契約を結んだとしてもドジャースとしては、契約に値するリターンがあると思えるわけです。しかし、ソト選手においてはどうでしょうか。番組内でも話していた通りで、右翼手としての守備能力は別選手に現状でも劣っておりますし、10年後に全く同じパフォーマンスができているとは誰も思えないでしょう。では仮に動けなくなった場合の球団に対するリターンを考えてみると、記録的な活躍が仮に継続できたとしても、最高のバッター以上の価値は生まれづらく、大谷翔平選手のような唯一無二の価値やあまりあるリターンには私はつながらないと思います。皆さんはソト選手の契約についてどう思いますか？ぜひ率直な意見をお聞かせください。それでは次回の動画でお会いしましょう。さようなら。